I really try to live by the mantra that everything that happens is exactly what is supposed to happen. And even though you might not see the gift in it in any moment, sometimes like even the dark moments, even the things that don't go your way, where it's really easy to get into that like reactive state and feel really down or feel like you did something wrong or feel like you messed up or missed an opportunity, to really trust that that was exactly meant to happen to bring you somewhere that you don't even know where that is yet.
Transformations. To create them is no mean feat, but there are only a few who have truly mastered the art of sharing their gift. But what if there was a way to unlock a proven method, to learn what it takes to deliver world-class transformations time and time again? To help you on your gifted path, your next set of remarkable masters are waiting. The copywriting queen who has single-handedly flipped the marketing world on its head. And a best-selling author who unlocks your full potential through the power of breathwork. Who will all help you answer the question, how do I share my gift with the masses?
Fill you both in. The dream come true for me on these kinds of conversations is that it is a conversation, and like more conversation, less interview. Mm-hmm. So the analogy I like to give is, imagine the three of us were out for dinner. What would happen? Actually,
we would be laughing insanely loud, annoying everybody else at every table around us.
Let me actually be more specific. Imagine we were at the keg on Dunsmuir.
Oh.
See that?
Oh, snap.
I'm already doing insider references.
Oh, snap. All right, here we go. Gosh.
You're like, and I'm there.
We'd be telling inappropriate jokes and probably eating lots of steak. I don't know. Really loudly. Because that's how we do it.
So I'll give you both some context. First, you are truly two of my favorite humans on the planet. Like, legit, I love you both. And I'm grateful for having both of you in my life. And I part of why I wanted this to happen, because usually we bring people on where there's a through line in terms of a theme or topic of the conversation based on where they're from or what industry they're in or what that might be. You're both in, or I guess the three of us are in completely different and unique and distinct industries. And I believe all three of us have spent the past 10 years building multi-million-dollar businesses. And the through line, I think, is that we all help other people create transformations in some way. And I've known both of you for 7-8 years. I'm assuming you both have known each other even longer than that. So I want to...
I guess so.
Yeah. I want to dig into all three of our journeys to help almost find the clues and the Easter eggs of what the commonalities were that other people can replicate. Other people who want to, at some point, be creating the impact that the three of us are creating right now. What could we uncover? And if we were archaeologists, to dig into our paths and our journeys to figure out, oh, wow, what actually happened along the way? And, let's maybe start with some quick... I usually don't do intros, but for the context of this conversation, to understand where you're both at today and what you're doing, what you're up to. And then I want to go back in time a bit and talk about our origin story, which I think is kind of fun. And then I'll dig into a lot of this. So, Sam, maybe we'll start with you. If someone asked you today, what does Samantha Skelly do? I'm actually curious. How the hell do you answer that question now?
It's a loaded question. Oh my gosh. Well, in the context of career, my brand is called Pause Breathwork. And the mission there is helping people really unlock their infinite potential, really remember who they are through the power of breathwork. So through the body, through energetics, through embodiment. In my experience, that's like the quickest way that we can actually drop into the true essence of who we are, not our structures or our conditioning or our parts or our trauma or anything else, but it allows us to go right to that essence of, oh, this is who I am before the world told me who I was. And it's just been really rad building experiences for people to remember who they are. And so we do that through technology. We do that through live events. We do that through our breathwork facilitator program. And it's been so fun. And in some respect, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Alex, what about
And then
you?
I also sing in the shower. I eat a lot of
Laugh really
chocolate.
loudly.
I laugh really loudly. I tell very inappropriate jokes. Then there's that too.
You're also an Uber driver for people like me, which maybe I'll
Tour
get to.
guide, a terrible one. I'm a terrible tour guide, but I can do it.
Oh, yeah. What do I do? It's so funny. I feel like that question never gets easier.
No.
You know, I remember when I first started my business and I'd go to networking events and people would be like, what do you do? And you're like, I don't know. But in short, I was sort of a freelance copywriter turned marketing consultant turned founder of the Copy Posse, which I call the raddest, baddest crew of copywriters on the internet. I actually started that brand because I'd been a freelance copywriter and marketer for about 8 years and was getting very jaded, I guess you could say, by a lot of the marketing that I was seeing happening in the industry. And coming from that background, you know, I was really sort of devastated that copywriting and marketing was getting a bad rap because of, you know, scammers and douches on the internet. And was like, you know what? Who's gonna call this out? Well, I guess I'll do it. And I started my YouTube channel and really just started talking about what it means to be a copywriter, redefining what it means to be a copywriter, and rallying rad humans around the world to help me with my mission of de-douchifying the internet. And in the process, really, really attracting the most beautiful, heart-centered, incredibly passionate writers from literally every different background, you know, every different gender, people who came to me saying, oh my gosh, you know, before when I found copywriting and marketing, I couldn't identify with the types of people that I was seeing teaching this. It was very much do this and you're going to make $1 million, which, hey, don't get me wrong. You can make a shit ton of money. I don't know if I can swear. Probably not. You can make a lot of money on the internet, copywriting. But for me, it was more about inspiring heart-centered humans to take their passion for writing and turning it into a real freedom business. So whether that means making 6 figures, whether that means being able to stay at home with your kids, whether that means, you know, leaving your 9 to 5 and traveling the world with your laptop, I really am passionate about helping heart-centered, passionate people turn their skills into a freedom-based business, and in the process changing the face of marketing and doing it in a way that's authentic and feels really good and helps genuine people sell products and services that genuinely help people, while staying kind of rooted in integrity and transparency and authenticity. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I love that. And a lot of your community members watch this show. And then they'll
hi guys.
They'll DM me on Instagram sharing how it's been impacting them, and they're the most beautiful humans.
They really are. The posse is rad.
And the most talented. I hired someone from your community and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Amazing. Yes, that makes me so happy to hear.
We've hired 2 of them. I think I've referred another 10 or 20. I can't even remember.
I am the copywriter dealer of the new, like the modern age of marketing.
That's so good.
So are you 2 ready to go back in time?
I don't
know if you're ready for this. So Samantha, well, let me preface this. In 2014, I launched my Archangel business. We did our first ever event in Toronto, January of 2014. And thought, wow, no one's going to fly here. It's cold. So we need to find a warmer place. And said, okay, we'll do a mastermind event in Los Angeles. I didn't know anyone in LA at the time. I thought, who cares? We'll just find a way to do this. And it worked. And then part of that event, we said, we want to have some, we want to give some scholarships to people who are growing and want to be in this room with us and people we can help. And you had applied for one of those. And as soon as I saw your video, I thought, who the hell is this person? She's amazing. It's like a beam of light coming through video. So I said, yeah, you're in. And check this out. This is the very first picture with me and Sam in it that I actually dug up from 2014 of her doing what we call a 126 talk on one of our stages.
Wow.
So that was epic. Then a year later, so this is 2014, a year later, a mentor of mine, and I guess Sam's yours too, Philip McKernan, was doing an event in Vancouver. So I said, okay, I'm going to come out. Let's hang out. And I also brought our friend Neil Moore. And the three of us were hanging out in Vancouver, went to Philip's event. That's a picture from that event.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually had Philip and Neil on this show, which is episode 5 with Jeff Spencer. And that was one of the most mind-blowing conversations ever. And then this happened. We went out for dinner, one of the best pizzas I've ever had in Vancouver. But
This is
so
amazing.
I booked an extra day on this trip. I thought I'm going to Vancouver for the first time. I want to hang out and experience this. So you said, well, there's this fun event happening tomorrow, this thing called Man Talks. Do you want to come there? And I actually have a picture from that day too. So Alex, you're here. I think that's the back of your head on the bottom left. So this is the day that Sam brought me to this event, run by Connor Beaton, and you introduced me to Alex. And that's how the origin story starts. But I part of why I brought this up, and I'm going to ask you both this question, but I'll start with Sam. Who were you back then?
Oh my gosh. I love that. Thank you for taking me down memory lane. And I have this really distinct memory where I was working at the Keg on Dunsmuir. And I remember it was like the 8th hour into my shift and I'm just sweating, like serving my 98th steak. And I'm like, this is so awful. And I remember grabbing a drink of water and going into like the little back room by like the ice machine and like hiding in a corner. And I remember just crying, being like, I'm in the wrong freaking movie. Like, I'm not supposed to be here doing this. Like, I'm not supposed to be serving tables. Like, oh my God, what's going on? And I got home from that freaking day and I look on Facebook and there's an ad. And the ad says, are you a heart-centered entrepreneur? Would you like to take your mission to the next level? I'm like, I don't think I have a mission, but I'll take anything to the next level because this is awful.
I have a heart.
I've got a beating heart. Okay. I've got 2 eyes and so
I work at the Keg, but that's okay.
But the interesting thing was like at that time, like I knew that I was here to do something big, but I had no idea really what it was. And my reality wasn't a representation of where I was going. So it created this like disconnect. I'm like, I'm making $30,000 a year. I'm working in a restaurant, but there's something in me that's like seeking to express itself in another way. So I saw this ad and literally every cell in my body was like, you have to apply for this. Like, go apply for this now. And so I sent that video in and I filled out the application. And that really, truly was the start to everything. I remember being at that event and meeting, the most incredible people, obviously you, Gia, and just people who are like dear friends to this day and have really sort of helped guide me into my first business, which was Hungry for Happiness, helping women who struggle with overeating, disordered eating, body image issues. But then I feel like Hungry for Happiness, it was like the thing that kicked my butt so hard and like gave me the resilience, the determination, the grit. And like, I wanted to quit that thing so many times. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so hard. Like, how come people don't talk about this part of entrepreneurship? But what I believe to be true, even to this day, is above everything, our businesses are designed for our growth and evolution before everything. And if we can view it like that, then every challenge, everything that comes up is making us stronger every day in every way. And so I believe that with every cell of my body now, but during the Hungry for Happiness days, I didn't know that. So I'm like, I'm getting my ass kicked. I don't even know. Like, it was foolish for me to stay in it because it was so challenging. So then 2018 is when I had this, like, I was doing breath work for like 10 years at that point. And I just had this feeling of like breathwork needs to be big in the world. Like there needs to be a huge movement, to bringing people back into their bodies, healing anxiety, stress, mental illness through the power of the breath. Like, we've been given this ability to do it and we've just forgotten. And so Pause was interesting. It grew so quickly, but only because I did the training in Hungry for Happiness. So it was able to, you know, it was a 7-figure company in the first 3 months, which was wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, the world really needs this. And then it's just been, a gift ever since. So there's challenge with that too, but it's a lot easier knowing that, you know, it's designed to grow me.
There's a quote, I think it's from Biz Stone, one of the Twitter founders, who said, you know, 10 years of grueling, disastrous, hard work makes you an overnight success. So when people see you now, it's like, oh yeah.
Totally.
For any of us, but not realizing all of the, and I don't use the word hustle. I don't like the word hustle, but all of the hard work of late nights and all these kinds of things, and dedication to consistency and dedication to pushing things forward that lead you to the place where at some point, like I love to give the analogy of NASA, where I learned this stat I thought was really cool. It takes a rocket, I think 80% of its fuel to get into orbit, because it has to leave the atmosphere, and that's where all the friction is. But once you're in space, you don't need that much. There's no friction. And to me, that's kind of like launching a business, where the first 8 years might be getting into orbit, and then you're off like a rocket ship, and you don't need as much fuel, but you can exponentially go faster with the same kind of fuel.
Yeah.
And Alex, what about you? Like, who were you in 2015?
Oh man. Well, first I have to say I already found a through line, because I also worked at the Keg. But not then. I worked is 2007. I served steaks at the Keg.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which, you know, I had sort of my own epiphany at that exact moment, same sort of thing, which is what led me to applying to a job at Mind Valley and moving across the world to Malaysia to work there for 3.5 years. But I'd come back from Malaysia in 2012 after being the event director at A-Fest. And I mean, to say I was young and full of sort of this false sense of confidence of like, I'm the creative director at this multi-million-dollar company. Oh yeah, entrepreneurship, that's going to be easy. Oh, okay. Like, it's so funny looking back and you're like, man, was I full of it. But I started freelance consulting in 2012. And if you ask me where I was in 2015, I was hiding. And what I mean by that is I knew I had so much more to give and to share. And I was completely anonymous on the internet. I had a few clients that I was working with as a marketing consultant and freelance copywriter, and I did that. It's almost like embarrassing to admit it, but the truth of the matter is I totally believe everything happens for a reason, and everything happens in the right timing and when it's supposed to. But for 8 years, I was hiding. I was working with my clients. I was just afraid of being seen for whatever reason, you know, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of letting people down. It was easier to just sort of be like, no, I'm just, you know, this freelance copywriter who works with a few clients, and I get to travel, and that's all I ever want. And I think I kind of lied to myself for a long time that was all I wanted. And, you know, I think from the outside looking in, it was the dream life, you know, being a freelancer and being able to travel and have that freedom. But I was like just freaking terrified of putting myself out there and being seen, and afraid of my own power and what would happen when I, you know, fully stepped into it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where I was then for sure. Yeah.
I think I'm still hiding.
Really?
There's a huge yeah, for sure.
Really? That's wow.
And
Tell me more.
there is a it's probably, and maybe I need to do some more breath work, but there's a
got you.
connection.
Definitely.
There must be a connection to some kind of childhood trauma where being visible was painful in some way. And that's a through line. So I think, which is hilarious, but even now I catch myself realizing, wow, I need to show up more. And there's always a gift and a curse component to all these things that Philip McKernan taught us, where if you asked me about even events that I produce with thousands of people, I'll still say I love to be backstage. We hire speakers; those are the people on the stage. And then I now, in recent months, and thinking it has to be me at the front, not other people. We can all be up there together, but that's an element of all this.
Yeah, it's like that fear of, and I think I do know partially, where it comes from. I think when I look at home video of myself as a child, like I was so extra. I mean, next level, like just next level. And I think, like to no one's fault, but I think I was told a lot to shut up.
Right.
And I think I was really afraid of owning that really extra loud side of myself, and I get really like the inner child in me gets triggered when someone goes shh or like be quiet or when I feel like I'm being annoying. Like that word annoying, I cannot tell you like that to me is the most triggering thing that anybody could say to me. And it's because I think for a really long time, I was so afraid of like being that annoying little girl and wanted to just, be cool and calm and collected. And that's like not who I am at all, And it wasn't until I really leaned into that and started my YouTube channel, which was the most uncomfortable thing for me to do ever, because not only was I putting myself out there, but I was putting myself out there to possibly very publicly fail. And I think in the same time, it was one of the most like therapeutic things I could have done for myself. So it's interesting.
I remember you coming out of your shell all those years ago. I remember you did a photo shoot down in Gastown and you had like that leather jacket on. Am I remembering this right? And you like launched your 100%. Site and you're like, it's time for me to come out. And I'm so grateful because your presence and your energy and your enthusiasm, it's just so healing. It like invites people to do the same.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Big as you possibly can.
Yeah. And that was the moment. I remember I had been freelancing for 4 years, had no website. Finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to build a website. That's all. I'm just going to build a website. And then I hired a photo crew and it was like full on. It was like hair, makeup, styling, everything. And oh my God, was that so uncomfortable for me. And then even announcing, hey, my website is live felt like, I can't imagine. Like, it was so scary. And I remember it's so interesting, Sam, like, I think you and I have had such similar parallel journeys because I remember when we met, you were ramping up Hungry for Happiness. And then ironically, we both got asked to speak on the same stage around the same time. And it's like so crazy because I always looked up to you and was like, Sam is so awesome. And she's younger than me, that bitch. Like, I can't, she's killing it. Oh my gosh. And you were such an inspiration for me. And I think that's the power, just to talk about women for a second, because obviously I'm a big fan of women, but I think that's our job as women is to step into who we're meant to be because we inspire other women to do the same. And I think for so long, we've been told to be quiet, nice little girls or whatever your programming is, whatever the story is that we tell ourselves. And I think as a woman stepping into your power, you have no idea how powerful that is for the people around you and the women around you. And so you doing that, Sam, gave me the courage. And then you saying that me doing it was, I mean, it's so beautiful. And I think that's what women need to do. And then having men like you, Gio, who hold space for that and who allow for that connection and amplification of that power to happen is so freaking amazing.
Thank you.
It's so fun. We're just here to co-nourish each other, you know?
It's true.
It's like everyone has an essence and it's like, oh man, that person is, you know, expressing the essence that's not yet expressed within me. And then when I get around that person, I can kind of calibrate to how they're living, you know? And it's just so fun. It's so fun.
You brought up Alex, you brought up the idea of being told to be quiet or tone it down. A common through line I see in maybe hundreds of conversations is that there's often when someone's trying to figure out what I would call their gift or value that they can create with simply by being themselves. There's a connection to things that made them stand out as a kid, or even things that they got in trouble for as a kid. Because when you're in that first 10 years of life, you don't have a filter and you don't have that negative self-talk stuff. It's just pure you. And the adults around us are trying to make us fit in or conform in some way because they think that that's the safe route. And we want to self-express. We want to be different. And then we are programmed to fit in. And then I think as adults, we struggle with that because we can't identify with that inner child that is completely unique. And part of the beauty of us and people who we surround ourselves with is that I think we become conscious of that so that we're trying to seek who that is and self-express at the biggest level, because that attracts the people who are aligned with us and the magic we can create. So I'm curious, Sam, is there anything you got in trouble for?
Oh gosh. Oh man. I've always had this like very prankster, witty, like always trying to like be a little bit mischievous side of me. And so I used to get in trouble for that all the time. Like my brother would come home from school and I would set up traps in his room. And like, so he like opens the door and like flour falls in. Like I used to do that shit all the time. And my parents were like, you can't do this. This is so unreasonable. And now I realize like I'm like bringing that part of me back because it's so fun. And I feel like everything is like all good things are attracted to like joy and magnetism. And so if we're laughing and we're having fun and we're joking around and we're really looking at like the bright, happy side of life, things just work out better. I feel like when I'm laughing more, I'm making more money. Like, you know, it's like money is attracted to joy. Like when I take life so seriously and like I get in like my adult self and like my small self and I'm like, it's very serious. It has to be serious. And oh my God, it like the energy of my whole organization like constricts, right? But when I look at it, I'm like, oh, this thing is one big game. It's just a game. And how can I have more fun with this game? How can I laugh more? How can I, you know, tell more jokes, like do more pranks and things like that. But yeah, that was the part of me that my parents were like, come on. And then I echo what Alex said as well, like the loud one. My brother still will go out to a restaurant, you know, at the adult ages that we are. And like, I have the same laugh as Alex, right? It's like when her and I are together, it's just like, we're singing in our laugh.
Game over.
And I'll laugh so loud. And Chris is like, shut up. Like you're causing a disrupt, like, shut up. I'm like, Chris, no, I'm not going to, like, I can't. And so that was like from my childhood too. It's like, just be quiet. Just like, come on. Yeah. But so learning to reclaim our, like who we really are and like giving ourselves, because no one's going to give permission to us, right? Giving ourselves permission to be seen, to laugh the loudest, to play the pranks, to do the things, to say the thing. It's just fun, you know?
Yeah. And it's so much easier too, because I think the thing that I noticed as well is I've always been weird and goofy around the people that I love and felt safe with. But anytime it was like outsiders, I would just close up, like just completely. And so it was almost like there were these two versions of myself, not consciously. It's not like I was like, oh, which version of myself am I going to be today? It was more just if I felt safe and with, you know, family, friends, and people I love, then I could be loud and I wouldn't, you know, think about it. But as soon as I would be in a room with other people or on a call or doing something like this, it was like, no, don't be weird. Just be professional, be good, Alex, be normal, Alex. And I think as soon as you start to just fully step into and lean into who you are at your core, like you said, the unfiltered version, pre 10 years old, and identifying parts of yourself that you loved about yourself then and then embodying that, all of a sudden it's like, alignment. You don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah,
You just are
totally.
who you are. And then you attract the right people because they see that you are being who you are. And all of a sudden it just creates like sort of this ripple effect of permission and alignment, and everyone's just sort of showing up in, as you know, you said earlier, Sam, like with their essence of just who it is that they're meant to be in the world. And that's, I think, so powerful.
I want to figure this out. Okay, so earlier on in my journey, I would see people who I thought, okay, these people are ahead of me on my path. And why does it seem so easier for them to make money or attract wealth or all these kinds of things? And then they would say things like, money is attracted to joy, which is a brilliant line. And then I would think, go fuck yourself. Like, I don't.
That's nice.
There's something else. There's some secret you're not telling me that makes it easier for you, and I don't get it. And how do I figure out that secret? So I'm curious if someone is watching right now and they're in that place where, you know, I need to make money to pay the bills and support my family. I'm just starting off in this entrepreneurial thing, and yeah, great, money's attracted to joy, but I'm stressed. How can we support that person right now who's at that place of the journey to give them direction or advice that makes sense for them, that they'll at least hopefully accept a tiny bit so they don't think it's some weird magic that we're talking about, even though maybe it is.
Gosh. Okay. So when I first started business, I really prioritize energy over strategy, like every day. I would wake up and I would call in the vision of where I was going, what it felt like, what did it look like, the car that I was driving, the house that I was living in, the clients that I was serving, how I, like, just everything. And I would get myself into that vibration. I would go view homes that I totally couldn't afford and test drive cars that I had no business test driving, so that I could experience the energy of abundance, of wealth, of being in that vibration. And that was one of the greatest tools to grow my business very quickly. Then I had hit this point where the business was doing, I think it was like around the $1 million mark, like $1 million a year. And then my mind was like, okay, Sam, you cannot scale on this energy shit. You need to get the practical, you know, what did you call it? Douche techniques or whatever, like the practical, tangible, all, you know. So I hired all of these bro marketers, all of this, like the, you know, like the urgency and the this and like all of this stuff. And our revenue went backwards because I wasn't doing it my way. And then I'm like, okay, what is going on? I'm like, oh, because I'm not having fun anymore. I'm not aligned. I'm doing something to get something. I'm not just doing it to serve and to give. Like there's I don't know. It was like there was this weird relationship with like me and my clients at that point in time, because there was all of this stuff in between us. And so truly one of the greatest things I could possibly share is prioritizing your energy over your strategy every day in every way. And what does it take for you to be so aligned, so in your heart, so connected to your vision before anything else? Because there's thousands of strategies that work. But if you're out of alignment and you're operating from scarcity and fear, those strategies aren't going to work, because people buy things based on feeling and resonance, not on, oh, this makes sense. You know, it's like people choose to work with you, Alex, because they watch Copy Posse on YouTube. They're like, oh my God, this chick is so fun and she's really wicked smart. Okay, boom, there's a vibration. But if you were filming your YouTube videos being like, oh my God, I hope this makes a sale, or, you know, like if there's like this condition around it, people are going to feel that and they're going to be like, okay, let me find someone else. So when we're in scarcity, and this is the interesting thing, because it's like the most important time for us to prioritize our energy over our strategy and have a really good money mindset is when we don't have that. Because in order to get that, we have to embody it first. So it like messes with our mind, because we're like, who am I to, you know, act as if I'm a millionaire when I'm in debt? Who am I to do this? But that's the point where it's so essential to do the energy work, do the mindset work, really pay attention to your thoughts and really be present to what's going on in your awareness, so you're not creating something that you don't want, because all of this stuff is just so subconscious. Yeah.
I think
I love all that.
there's an element of hope and possibility if you are surrounded by people who are also ahead of you on your journey too.
Yes. Yeah.
It also bumps up. It'll have you activated, triggered, whatever word people like to use. If you're comparing yourself to them, and that's a challenge that I think everybody has at some point. If you can shift comparison to inspiration and say, well, if that person can get there, that means I can too. And I think that's what I see over and over again. And I think I feel very lucky that I get to create community in all kinds of aspects because it gives people the opportunity to see other people doing big shit. And then realizing, oh, wait, wow, that's possible. And then shortcutting that learning curve of, no, just do these 3 things or whatever that might look like in terms of people sharing best practices with each other. And I think the community component or the belonging component of this journey, especially if you are a coach, entrepreneur, practitioner of some kind, artist of some kind, to be around other people where you don't feel alone anymore. And I think that's a major component of this whole thing.
So true. So true.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts. First of all, Sam, I love what you said, prioritize your energy over your strategy. And that kind of leads into one of the things I was going to say, which is success looks different for everyone. It's really easy to compare yourself to someone else online, especially when you think of how much time we all spend like on our phones, on social media. And I say this to my students all the time. Like I have some students that like, they want to dance on reels and they love it. And that's their vibe. And I have other students that are like, I'm not a real dancer. Like that's not my thing. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of it though. It's like, it doesn't look the same for everybody. And you got to find kind of what works for you. And as soon as you just sort of find that alignment, that's when the magic happens, And I know, Gio, you and I have talked about this, about how you have more paid clients than you do Instagram followers. And obviously you're starting to do more on Instagram and stuff now, but you've built this beautiful business with being an introvert and just creating more one-to-one connection. And then that changed to like, slightly bigger groups. And then you started doing events and it was like this slow process. And so I think the first thing is just be true to you, because it's so easy to compare yourself and think, oh, in order to be successful, I have to do exactly what Sam's doing or Alex is doing or Gio is doing or whatever. And the reality is, no, all you have to do is be you and show up in your most authentic self. And you'll be so surprised how many other people out there are just like you and who have been waiting to connect with you because of who you are. And then the second thing is definitely around the community piece, because ironically, even though we're more connected now than ever before, I don't, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know for me, these last couple of years, especially with the pandemic and everything, I've felt more alone now than I ever have. And I don't mean like online, because if it wasn't for the community that I had created, which was just a coincidence that literally I launched the Copy Posse in January of 2020, and I created an online community. I don't know what I would have done without that community, because that's been my saving grace these last couple of years. And so to your point of saying, find the people who lift you up and who believe in you and who love you for who you are, is so important, because no matter what, we're going to have people in our lives who don't get us, and that's cool. Like we can still love them for who they are and how they show up in some ways, but if they don't get you and they don't get who you are and what you're trying to do, then that's going to be really hard. And then the last thing, and this was something that came up in a conversation I had with Selena Sue the other day, a friend of mine. She said, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end, because we all, like Sam, I'm sure like you have videos, podcasts, content that's on the internet that you're like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Like that was like, the first time I did an interview, the first time I spoke on stage, the first time, and we look at it, and I actually kept the very first YouTube video I ever recorded up on my channel just so people could see, like, look at how crappy it is. Look at how much I say, look, it's terrible, but it's because you have to start somewhere, and you're never going to all of a sudden become a sensation, you know, overnight, going back to what you said at the top of the call, where, you know, it takes time and consistency.
I love you mentioned Selena. Just as a complete side note, I haven't seen her or talked to her in years, and I just messaged her 2 hours ago.
No way. See,
I had no idea she was
happens
your
like that all
friend.
the time.
That's kind of fun.
That's so
It is
awesome.
fun.
What, Sam, you mentioned how breath work allows us to remember who we are. Can you first, let's define breath work, because I think people either have no idea what it is
Yeah.
and are questioning what does that mean, or they think it's some kind of, well, actually, they may have a preconceived notion or misconception. Can you explain what it is? And then how does it allow us to remember who we are? And is that connected to figuring out what the gifts could be from childhood?
This is so good. So, breath work is simply conscious, continual breath, right? So, normally, most people are they're not paying attention to their breath. Their body is just breathing itself. And when the body breathes itself without intent, it's going to follow the pathways of emotionality, right? So, if we're anxious, it's going to be like, right? We're going to be like that breath. If we're relaxed, it'll be more of a. But the beautiful thing is with breath work, when it's intentional, when it's conscious and continual, we can activate the states we desire to rest in through the breath. So if we want to feel relaxed, right? And when we do breath work for an extended period of time, what that does is it shifts it allows us to shift out of the mind, release the grip from reality, and drop deeper into our body. So when we're viewing life through the lens of our mind, through the mental field, that's our survival. So we're going to be looking at the world as if it's a really scary place. I'm not safe. This is going to hurt me. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's that survival essence, which is needed, but we can't let that be our resting position, or else we're just going to be super anxious and all over the place all the time. So what we need to do is we need to distribute some of the energy from the mind down into the body, because what that does is it relaxes the mind. When we root our energy down into our hearts, into our bodies, into our intuition, the mind relaxes. And then it's not the mind driving reality, it's actually the body. And when the body is driving reality, then we're viewing things from the lens of a more grounded, loving, compassionate place. So then the mind goes from like the fear mind into just the clear mind. We use the mind the way that the mind is supposed to be used to support us from true danger, not the perception of danger. So breath work is that. It's like, how can I take anywhere from literally 3 minutes? We can completely change our state in 3 minutes and move us from that operating from fear place, scarcity, fear, doubt, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, all of those things that come up, into a more grounded place. Now, when I use the word remember, when we are not identified with our conditioning and our limitations and the perception of who we think we are, when we're no longer identified with that, we feel a different place in our body. And that different place in our body is associated with our truth, our true nature, who we really are. And, our gifts, they don't come from our mind. They're extracted from our body. They're in our body. So for people who are like, I don't know if I'm gifted. I don't know if I'm on purpose. It's because we're thinking about it. Like pause breathwork didn't come from my mind. It wasn't like, oh, what should I do next? There was none of that. I emptied out. I got into a really peaceful place and it dropped in. It's like, this is the next thing. This is what it's called. I didn't even think of the name. It was like, this is what it's called. And so we can really begin to uncover and extract our gifts and our greatness, not through the mind, but through the body and through the breath. We can really get there effectively.
And it takes 3 minutes?
We can do it right now if you want to.
Even just you describing it, I was like focusing on my breath. I feel amazing.
Yeah,
like just you
3
talking
minutes.
about it and being conscious of my breathing and my body in that moment was, I'm sure everyone listening too, is like, as soon as you said breathing, everyone was like,
yeah, that's what it does. It's so funny to watch it when I'm doing it live and teaching it live. All of a sudden people are like, Okay.
Wait, was I
Here we
breathing? I
go.
must have been breathing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's do one now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's do one called the Triactive breath, which is into the belly, up into the chest, out through the mouth. So it sounds like this. So it's all through the mouth. At the end, I'll cue you to take a deep breath in. We'll hold at the top and then we'll relax. Okay. You guys ready for this?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Everyone closing down your eyes, dropping your shoulders. Just taking a moment and acknowledging how you feel now, what is here now. Maybe there's nerves, maybe you're feeling restful, maybe you're feeling a little numb, just without judgment, just acknowledge how you're feeling now. And when you're ready, let's start the breath pattern together. And now when you're ready, taking a deep breath in through the nose. Holding the breath at the top. Holding the breath as the energy realigns. Feeling yourself drop deeper into your body. Feeling the sense of calm come through your system. And now when you're ready, releasing the breath. And then just doing another body check-in. What's here now? How do you feel now? Maybe a little bit more rested, a little bit more open.
I feel so energized. Like, woo.
Isn't that
I had to like grab onto the desk at one point. I was like, whoa. Oh my God.
I'm holding my desk.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, maybe this should be done sitting down. No, I feel.
Are
like
you
there was a
standing right
second-
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a second where it kind of went to my head and I almost felt like I was going to fall over. And then I grabbed onto the desk and that sort of grounded me a bit more. But like, wow.
Oh my gosh, I thought you guys were sitting.
We just like full on, just like, that was great.
I'm like, uh-oh. Yeah, doing this for everyone listening, either sitting down on a chair or lying down is even better. Like lying down and doing that for like 20 minutes, you'll literally wake up feeling like an entirely different person. It's so wild. Like whenever I'm at my computer, and you guys know those moments and those days where you just feel like things in your business or life are just stacking. It's like one thing after the other. I'm like, okay, literally I can't take another thing. So I'll just lie down, put on one of the tracks from the app, and I'll wake up and I'm like, wow, like nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. And that's the mantra that I love saying to myself, just nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong.
It is so wild and fascinating. And ironically, it probably shouldn't be wild and fascinating, but it's wild and fascinating how the simplest things create the biggest impact. Like just focused breathing, drinking more water.
Yes.
They are such fundamentals and basics, and yet it's these things that most of us forget. And you can't build. You need that foundation of the basics to build on top of for whatever it is you're doing. And it's those things that we either set aside or sacrifice or forget or even play.
Yeah.
For Stephanie and I, more and more we are trying to prioritize play and protect playtime in our schedule, however that looks. It could be date night, or we just started salsa lessons
Oh my
once a
gosh, so
week
fun.
in a class so we can go out and then we want to actually practice in clubs or whatever that looks like. And it is, I wish during my salsa class, I can pull out my phone and capture photo or video essence of her because she is lit up. It is the
Just the
coolest thing.
joy.
And it's that, joy.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Well, we're living in this attention economy state, right? Where everything is trying to pull us away from our true nature. Everything is trying to pull us away from our center. And it is the simplest of things, like breath, like rest, like play, like hydration, like connection. Like those are so simple and they yield the greatest result. But we live in this world where it's like, do this to be happy and do this to be happy. It's like, no, just fuck around and breathe and do a little bit of salsa and you'll be happy,
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Coming up with those non-negotiables is so important because I get really easily pulled into my business, which I think every entrepreneur can relate to. I mean, God, we're, obviously very passionate about our businesses. We obviously care, so much. And like you were saying, Sam, those days where you're like, are you kidding me? One thing after the next. And when I have those days, it's so easy for me to go into that state of being reactive. And all day I'm just like responding. And I can feel it in my body that I'm just this like constricted, stress mess. And the thing that I always have to remember, and you feel so powerful when you do that, is first of all, I love the mantra, nothing is wrong. The number of times where in my mind I'm negotiating with myself, like I can't go to the gym because this email just came in and it's like, something I have to deal with right now. I have to always kind of remember, like, in an hour, that's still going to be there. Nothing's going to change. And coming up with those non-negotiables and prioritizing your day based on them, I have to constantly, like, I am not perfect at that. Like, in fact, I probably default more to the other way. And so it's something that's so important, especially for those people like me who are sort of addicted to stress in a way and addicted to the hustle and like the next thing. I just got to do the next thing. I just got to do the next thing in order to keep this ship moving. And it's this really, really toxic programming that as soon as you just like realize like, no, it's fine. I can prioritize myself. And in fact, things will be better because of it. I think it's a total game changer, especially for people who have a tendency to get really pulled in that perfectionist sort of mindset and everything has to happen and it has to happen right now. And I really struggle with that.
Yeah, it's one of the most interesting things as an entrepreneur. It goes back to like what I shared earlier of like our business is designed to bring up things for us to work on so that we can just get better and better and better every day in every way. And
then I must have a lot to work on.
Well, I feel like that, but that's why you've been doing it for 10 years and you've been successful for 10 years because you know that. It's like the statistic of like, I don't know what it is, but it's like 95% of businesses fail within the first something. Like it's not the business, it's the entrepreneur. Because it's so much, like you guys, we've been doing this for long enough that we've seen people pop up, ooh, and then down, and they pop up and they go down. And they, it's like the sustainable growth over a lifetime requires this level of emotional responsibility and being attuned to our inner children, because if we don't do that, our inner children are going to run our businesses, and then we're going to really fuck it up.
Are you reading my mind? I think
Maybe.
I just typed a note for myself. I want to bring up the relationship between business maturity and founder emotional maturity and personal responsibility, because I'm always looking for patterns. I feel like I have a superpower for pattern recognition. And when I speak, so let me give some context. In my Archangel world in the business, we run different memberships based on where people are at in their journey as an entrepreneur. So we have our academy group, which is people who are growing, and let's use metrics or revenue as an easy one, like 5 to 6 figure ish. And then we have our synergy group where they're at that place where they've proven what they're doing and they want to scale it and their dream is to get over, let's say, 1 million. And then we have our council group that Alex is in, where it's like 7, 8, and 9. And where they're really scaling on a exponential way. So people, let's say in the academy group, and I love having conversations with hundreds and thousands of people all over the gamut. So they look up to maybe someone like Alex and say, well, she has her shit together. There's no fear. Everything's working, successful, 100% confidence, and not realizing, and this is, to me, one of the coolest things. Every single person in the community has some kind of imposter syndrome. Every single person has shit going on in some way. Every single person has some kind of fear thing. Every single person has the next place they want to get to, and they don't know how to get there. And there's an inverse graph. So people assume the more quote unquote successful you get, the easier things become. And it's the opposite. The harder they get, because you're tackling bigger and bigger challenges and problems, and your identity keeps shifting with who you have to become as the founder, because you start off as the person delivering the transformation or the outcome. Then you start becoming the HR department to have other people do those things. Then you become a leadership coach to help other people become leaders. And then you have a board of directors, and just things, or whatever that path looks like. Things just keep evolving. You're always learning new skills. You're always stacking skills, and you're always a noob at something. So you can't ever get rid of that process. And the path that I see is that to get to the place where you have a team and things are rocking, and maybe even a bigger platform, and people are starting to get to know who you are, is that you have a new relationship with fear and risk and personal responsibility, where you realize you are 100% responsible for everything in your life. You can't blame other people, even though you feel like it, even when other people make mistakes. And especially if you start to build a team, and there's always going to be things messing up, and who knows what happens. But tell me, I'm curious how you both feel about your relationship with personal responsibility, and how you have matured, or have maybe seen yourself mature over the past few years. So maybe Alex, we can start with you.
Yeah, I love that. I remember this idea of taking responsibility. I first learned it back when I worked at Mind Valley, and this idea that, you're responsible not necessarily for everything that happens to you, but you're responsible for how you react and how you take that experience and grow from it. And it's such a game changer. I think it can be easy to blame, and I think it can be easy to step into sort of that victim mentality, and it happens all the time. It happens in relationships, it happens in business, it happens all the time. And I love what you said, like, as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur, it definitely doesn't get easier, which I think is maybe the greatest myth of all of time when it comes to entrepreneurship is, like, hey, you become an entrepreneur, you make $1 million, you buy a Lambo, and then, like, that's it. You're good, And it's like, oh, no. And I think there have been times, and I'm sure Sam can relate and other people listening to this, where you're like, wow, did I know what I was getting into? And like, you definitely have those like, oh shit moments. And I think that's part of why being an entrepreneur is such a lesson in personal growth. Like when people say business isn't personal, I'm like, actually it really is, and I get like certain business decisions aren't personal, but for me, my business has been my greatest self discovery of all time. And that idea of sort of taking responsibility and then also trusting a little bit, I think I really try to live by the mantra that everything that happens is exactly what is supposed to happen. And even though you might not see the gift in it in any moment, sometimes like even the dark moments, even the things that don't go your way, where it's really easy to get into that like reactive state and feel really down or feel like you did something wrong or feel like you messed up or missed an opportunity, to really trust that that was exactly meant to happen to bring you somewhere that you don't even know where that is yet. And I think that just has to be how you proceed with the mindset of an entrepreneur, So like, I used to value certainty above all else. I valued significance and certainty. If you go to like Tony Robbins' sort of basic values, I valued significance and I valued certainty. Like I wanted to be a big deal and I wanted to know I was going to make the money, and that's all that mattered to me. And then somewhere along the way, as I started growing and of course emotional maturity, like you talked about, my values really shifted. All of a sudden I went from significance and certainty to uncertainty and connection and contribution and growth, and watching your values change over time, I think for me has been really interesting. And the same thing happened when I went from being just, a freelance copywriter to doing what I'm doing now. Is at the time of starting my freelance copywriting and consulting business, I valued freedom and variety and uncertainty above all else. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, great. I built a complete lifestyle business. And I was able to travel and have a lot of fun. And I think I lied to myself that like that was what I wanted for a long time. And the reality was I was hiding, like I mentioned earlier. But then my value started to shift from uncertainty and variety and freedom to contribution and growth. And that's when I felt compelled to sort of start my YouTube channel and start serving that audience. And so, I think what's really an interesting sort of self-reflection exercise is to really ask yourself, what is it that you value most right now? And there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's easy to go, oh, you don't value contribution. Like you're a horrible person. I didn't value contribution when I was starting my business. I was like, I just want to like make enough money so that I don't have to go back and get a job. And I think that that's okay. And I think recognizing that it evolves over time, but then also listening to those values when they shift and being in alignment with that, I think is really sort of the journey. And what we're all here to do is listen to what our heart wants and go for it.
That's profound.
That's so good. That's so good. I remember, Alex, I resonate with that so much. I remember being at Date with Destiny with Tony years ago, and he was like, if your top two values are significance and certainty, you're going to have a shitty life. And I'm like, uh-oh, I better.
You're like, you're looking at your notebook. You're like, yeah.
I'm like, oh, shoot, Tony. Let me get my poo together.
God, Tony, you did it again.
Yeah, Tony, you did it again. Oh, gosh. That was really good.
But I think that's okay. Like, honestly, like, I think that's a normal, like, early 20-year-old value. Like, you want to be somebody in the world. I get it. Like, it's, I think that's okay, and I think it's just sort of realizing that they can change over time too. Like this idea of purpose, now I'm going to go on a rant about purpose, but everyone always talks about what's your purpose. And I really do believe we all have one, but I also believe it changes over time. And I think you have to continue to lean into that purpose for it to then reveal itself. It's like you have to continue taking those steps forward to reveal who you're meant to become. It doesn't just like magically download one day. It evolves over time. I know when I started my YouTube channel, everyone always asks me like, what was your play? And I'm like, honestly, I just felt like I had been hiding and my purpose in that moment was to share and serve. I literally didn't even have a product to sell when I launched my YouTube channel, nor did I know what that would look like. And it wasn't until I started receiving feedback and insight from this audience that I was serving that then informed sort of thoughts that I had about, oh my gosh, actually, I am feeling called to move in this direction. And my purpose was hazy for a long time. And then it became to crystallize as I continued to step down that path. And so don't be hard on yourself if you're not like, I don't know what my purpose is. You might not. And it might feel more immediate, like I just need to take care of myself and my family. And I think that's a very noble and powerful purpose that obviously is a basic human need for security. And so being okay with allowing it to evolve as you step forward.
Yeah. Something that I love saying is your vibration is your contribution. So it's like, if we don't know what our purpose is or like the tangible how can you show up as that alive, potent, loving version of you every single day and give that as your gift if you don't know what the tangible thing is yet?
Sam, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I've been actually dying to ask you this. So,
don't die.
You've known me for 8 years, and I think you and Neil have been to more of my events than probably any other human.
Really?
Which is amazing. So you've probably had a unique perspective in watching, I guess, my evolving or transformation or progress. What have you observed? And here's why I'm asking this, because I think a lot of us, there's this analogy I like, that you can't read the label of the jar you're in. So sometimes we don't even recognize what the gifts are because we just think it's normal. We just think everyone's the same, or we don't recognize things that are extraordinary about us, or we don't recognize evolution that happens because we're with ourselves all day long. So it's hard to see change if you are in your own body. So I'm curious if there's anything that you, in your language, that you've seen evolve since you first met me.
Oh my God, I love this question. I'm so happy you asked this. So it's interesting. When you ask that question, there's through lines of when I first met you to now that have been so consistent and so beautiful. One of those things being how deeply you value connection and intimacy, and you've built your business on relationships. Like you out-care everybody. You just care so much, like even like you'll just send me a text with a photo and be like, remember this. And I'm like, oh my God, like you care so much about a relationship. And that through line is I believe that through line is the catalyst to this more like the other transformation. So then the other transformation that I notice is the biggest thing is like, I feel like there's a resting in your body. Like you're like, I'm here. Like I am here. And that I feel gets stronger and stronger every single time that I see you and I witness you and I hear from you and I talk to you. It's like there's a clarity with who you are, not from the mind, but from like the body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then what I've noticed, it's like you are constantly setting the bar higher and higher and higher and higher and doing cooler and cooler and cooler things. Like, so that in and of itself, like that discernment internally creates this like quantum in your reality when it comes to, well, even your physical transformation, right? I remember this one time I just hopped on a Zoom and I'm like, what the fuck happened? like you had this like physical transformation that was so, I mean, to me, it seemed like it was so rapid. Obviously it took time. But then your relationship with your woman, it's like absolutely amazing. And, when I first met you, you were a single dad, and now you have this like beautiful relationship with this incredible woman and like setting the standard for that and then stepping into it. Like, yeah, I've just noticed like you claim it, you name it, and then you claim it, and then it comes into reality. And it's infinite. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you. You use the word transformation too. I love that. And I've been sharing a concept recently that I think you'll both resonate with. I call it the two transformations. And it's for anyone who sells a service to somebody else, or entrepreneur, coach, whatever it might be, a copywriter. And what I say is that when people hire you, they're hiring you for a transformation or an outcome or a result. And that's the conscious transformation. It could be copy for a landing page, or it could be breath work to reduce stress. They want an outcome. But there's a second secret transformation that happens, and it's the transformation of commitment. So the second someone pays you or says, I'm in or yes to working with you, they have taken a massive step forward in becoming the person or becoming their future self simply by making the commitment. And I think that on my own journey, one of the cool things that I've seen is that when people say yes to things, that is the transformation. That's sometimes an even bigger transformation in the thing that they want. And part of that is connected to confidence and esteem. And you know, I love the concept of future self. There's so many episodes on this show that talks about what I call identity engineering. And I think you can probably use breath work as part of that too. So I'm going to find ways to incorporate your stuff. Like Alex, I'll never forget you sharing to your community the story of you hiring me as your coach. So you hired me to help you design like a mastermind group that you now run. What was your experience like at that?
Yeah, I love telling this story.
I haven't heard this. I'm excited.
Yeah. So it was, you know, again, going back to what you said earlier, like, you know, you don't have to do it alone. There are people out there who are 1 step ahead of you, 2 steps ahead of you, 10 steps ahead of you that, I mean, yeah, like first of all, I knew I needed to hire a coach. And this is, again, like naming it, claiming it, whatever you want to call it. I knew I needed to hire a coach, but I know a lot of people, and like I just didn't know, like nothing felt in alignment, because I'm like, I know I don't want to hire a marketing coach. It needs to be the right person. It needs to be someone who is on board with like what I'm trying to do. And I don't want it to be like a marketing coach. I want it to be someone who can help me grow into the leader I want to become for the posse. And so randomly around that time, like, you reached out to me, Gio, and this is, again, just like the synchronicity of the universe. Yep. You reached out to me and you're like, hey, like, remember me? Like, I mean, I know we had met a couple of times, so it wasn't really a remember me, but it was like, hey, you know, I saw one of your ads or one of your posts, and like, you're doing Copy Posse now? Because it really was like pretty recently that I started that brand, and you're like, let's connect and hop on a Zoom call. And it was just totally purely because you wanted to catch up, you know, and we had an awesome conversation. And then you emailed me and said, hey, I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but, you know, I feel compelled to help you, you know, create what you're trying to create. And immediately my body, I'm like, yup. Like, it was just like an instant, like, F yes. And I say this to my community all the time, that scary feeling of leveling up. Like, it doesn't have to be an easy yes, but it has to be a fuck yes. And like, it's never easy. Like, anyone who tells you that like leveling up and investing in yourself is easy, like, it's not. Like, I mean, a lot of the times we're battling all of this imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh, no, like, I'm going to be the one person he works with who isn't going to have results. Or like, you know, you tell yourself all these stories. And so, and you had said that to me, Gio, you're like, I want it to be a fuck yes. And I think I wrote back in like 30 seconds. I'm like, yes, like all caps. And, anyway, so you're like, okay, here's the invoice, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whew, like, I was like committed. It was happening. But like, this whole idea of like, I went into my online banking, no, too big of a transfer to send on the online banking. I had to go to the bank, you know, like I had to draw out this whole process. So like, there I am, like walk into the bank, and I'm like, whew, I'm kind of like, I can't believe I'm about to send like this person all this money. And like, then you go to the bank, and then they ask you all these questions like, whoa, okay, do you know who you're sending this money to? And I'm like, yes. Have you been in communication with this person? Like, they ask you, like, because it's their safety questions to make sure that you're not, like, you know, buying into some Ponzi scheme or whatever. And I'm like, oh, yes, I know him. And they're like, huh, and what's his Archangel? Okay, what? Okay, like, and I'm like, oh, God. And every question they're asking, I'm like, it's like reinforcing, like, yes, I said Archangel, like, write it out. And so it's like reinforcing this commitment. And the whole time I'm like, why is this taking so damn long? Anyway. Long story short, sent the wire. I like walked out of the bank. Like, that was like the secret transformation. I walked out of the bank. I was like, I'm going to go buy myself an expensive latte. Ooh, look at this boutique. I might need to buy myself a little something. Like, I was a different human walking out of there. And then, of course, working with you was incredible. And you helped me design Rain, this, you know, incredible community. And, but yeah, like, to your point, absolutely. Like, the moment they were like, great. thank you, Miss Cattoni. Here's your wired, receipt. I was like, whoop, like instant secret transformation. And I completely agree, because it's never easy, but making those decisions for yourself, it's the most empowering thing and so transformational.
And it worked out okay for you?
It worked out great. And then I sent you way more money. And then it's funny because what's funny is the first one was like this big and scary. And then the second one, I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And then the third one, I was like, oh, that's nothing. And so you realize that things that used to scare you no longer do anymore. And yeah, I mean, it absolutely worked out. You have been awesome and transformational for me in my business.
I learned something from that moment.
Story?
That I know Sam, you'll love this and resonate with it, and all three of us, or even people listening. Well, I want to teach a lesson to people watching and listening, that I hope they get this, that the best ever relationships, even friendship or romantic partnership or business client relationship, is when you are each other's heroes. Like the reason it worked so well is even in inviting you to work with me, I got so excited. Like it was, I just knew intuitively, I'm going to help you and this is going to be crazy awesome. And, I have this thing in my head of, would I hang out with this person? Would I have dinner with this person? Would I, because it's like any relationship, you don't want it to get to a place where you get frustrated or it feels like an obligation, especially if you're putting that much energy into what you're doing. And in every, I don't even like the word client, because like you guys, it feels more like family now, but in everyone who's in my realm or world or universe where they're a member of something or attending something, there's a love connection. It's like, I love these people. And there's also an energetic exchange that feels like batteries are being charged and not drained. And to me, that's the lesson, is that that's actually possible. You can build an entire business or career or whatever it is by surrounding yourself with people who light you up and charge you up. And that currency is more valuable than the money, because the more charged you are, the more productive you can be, the more you fall into that joy place. Like pre-Archangel, or even when I start, like Sam, when I met you, I was also doing real estate and crushing it in that world. And I secretly hated it. It was very draining. So it wasn't about the money anymore. It's like, I don't want this. And trying to explain this to people back then was really challenging. Like, what do you mean?
You're so successful. Why don't you love this? Yeah.
Or trying to explain to the real estate industry people what Archangel is. Actually, even trying. So I asked each of you to introduce yourselves. I still don't know. Like I was at a party or an event with my parents on the weekend, and people would ask, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I think I said real estate agent, because it's just easier to try to explain.
Yeah,
so funny.
Yeah, like it's just easier. Like I think I have people still in my life who think I'm a lawyer still, because I wanted to be a lawyer, and now they think copywriting has something to do with patent and trademark. So they're just like, copyright lawyer, excellent. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Gio, I want to create your elevator speech for you, like based on like what I think you do.
Go ahead.
Totally.
I'll have to meditate on it, but I feel like there's something really juicy there.
It's gonna be so epic. You're gonna say it to someone, and they're gonna be like, "What?" Yeah,
so good.
It is the struggle never goes away. I still have the deer in the headlights moment. Like, what do you do? It's so hard.
I think I like hanging out with people who struggle to answer that question.
Yeah.
This one time, as a joke, I said I'm a fluffer. Like fluffing the poles after people stripped. And they're like, "Oh my God, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a real passion of mine." And it went on for so long. Don't use that one,
like,
Gio. That'd be weird.
Yeah, don't use that one. Yeah, but it's so you're right. Like the what do you do question. It's, is that really important, or is it like, who are you? Like, or what do you care about? Or, I remember for the longest time when people would ask me, like, what do you do? My default answer was, I have fun and I help people.
That's so good.
And because that's just going back to what you were saying, Sam, of like your vibration. Like, no matter what I do, no matter what like the packaging looks like in terms of the brand or whatever, like I always follow that, like, as long as I'm having fun and helping people and doing good, then like that's the most important thing. And, you know, I think like it really can be that's simple, you know, and how that shows up can be different for everybody, but yeah.
Can I share the best ever answer that someone gave me when I asked them, what do you do?
Yeah.
So Sam asked me what I do.
Gio, what do you do?
I do well, thanks.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I feel like that's something that Neil Moore would say.
I was, I think, 18 years old. I'll still never forget that. I thought that was brilliant.
I do well.
So to conclude this epic, we all have to hang out in person at some point and
Oh my gosh.
spend more time together. I'm curious, what is next for each of you? So I like to think about dreaming, and we all do this in a different way. Some people are more go with the flow. Some people have giant goals and big future plans. I'm just curious with respect to the impact you want to create or future you want to design. What does that look like? And how can anyone watching or listening right now support in making that dream a reality?
Alex, you go.
I mean, yeah, so it's funny. I've always been, I know Gio, you and I talked about this. Sometimes I'm really bad at setting goals. I don't know where that comes from. I'm really good at the immediate, and then I'm really good at the like sort of big picture kind of vision stuff. But, you know, when I think of sort of what my purpose is, it's to, yes, to sort of change the face of marketing, but to make that more fun. But really, it's to kind of inspire others to be able to sort of fully be who they are and share their magic with the world, and turn their passions into businesses and create a ripple effect of positivity across the world. Because I sort of feel like there's just been so much sort of negativity and polarity, and especially on the internet lately. And it's so toxic, and it's sucked me in at times. And, you know, I think there's sort of like this heaviness that a lot of people have been feeling. And how can I be part of a ripple effect of positivity and change through the avenue of, you know, learning really tangible skills that can help you create a business and have the freedom you want, but ultimately do good, help people, and show up in like sort of your most powerful way. So, you know, I have a lot of ideas of what that looks like, but for now, I think staying connected to that sort of truth of, you know, we all sort of have a voice and a unique gift, and mine happens to be writing, and I know so many other people have that gift as well. And how can that be sort of this a catalyst for change and for positivity and fun? Like I want everyone to just have more fun.
So basically, I started this entire conversation by lying, because I said we are three people doing three completely different things, and then I just realized now, no, we do the exact same thing.
Right. But isn't that the beauty of it? You know, it's like truly, you know, we're the Avengers, to use a very Geo analogy. And we're the Avengers, and we all sort of have different superpowers, but ultimately it's to make the world a better place and have fun, you know? So I think really that's what it is. And to teach, I've really, really loved to teach. And that's when you mentioned being surrounded by people that light you up and doing things that really light you up. I had no freaking idea that I loved to teach until I started doing it, and continuing to do that in different forums and mediums.
So
Sam?
Awesome. Yeah, the big thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is I just have this vision of, like, I kind of want to just replace the smoke break for people. You know how people like go out and have a smoke? Like, I want that to be replaced with breath work all around the world. And I know like so many people don't smoke anymore, but it's like that break to remember who we are, that break to remember that life is actually really fun, that break to remember that the thing that's you know, causing you stress is just so insignificant compared to, you know, the greatness that we have, the capability of feeling. And so the easiest way for me to do that is through our breathwork app of just how can I create the most, and Gio, you're actually a big inspiration for this. Like, how can I create the most epic videos showcasing story to inspire people to breathe? I have this whole vision of something called Pause Productions, which is a production company that just showcases the human experience and how people's lives have been impacted through doing the work, breath work, different types of energy work and things like that. But yeah, that's my vision of like replacing the smoke break with breath.
It's like replacing the doom scroll.
Yes, exactly.
Don't doom scroll, breathe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I can tie all of this together and say, I too love eating at the keg. So we have that in common.
And we all have two eyes, one nose, and one mouth.
Yeah. Such a Canadian thing too, right? All the Americans are like, what's the keg?
Oh my God. I miss Canada so much.
Come back. It's raining
Well,
here.
I want to. Gio, I would have loved to come to your event in May, but I just applied for my green card, and so I can't leave. Well, I can leave, but I wouldn't be able to get back into the States. So as soon as I have my green card in my hand, I'm coming for you guys.
Love it. Thank you both for a mind-blowing and heart-blowing. Is that a thing? No, it is. Heart-blowing conversation.
Like it.
Love you both.
This has
Thank
been
you.
amazing. Love you guys.
Love you too. Thank you, Gio.
So good.
That was so.
Now you're set to create transformations for the many, you'll need to be at your best to do it consistently, to ensure your gift can create as much impact as possible. I'm here to tell you that you, my hero friend, need to level up your performance. See you next time, as our next set of guides will show you how to stay at your highest performance level.